Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's webinar where we're going to be looking at the HAVENT project for patients on GLP-1s or type 2 diabetic patients. My name is Andy Shepherd. I'm the clinical lead at ReadyCare, and I'm just going to pass you on to the rest of the gang here so you're familiar with all the faces, just starting with Donal.
Hi, my name is BarlowCollins. Until recently, I was a GP in Fareham in Hampshire, and before that in some leadership positions in the local Fareham and Gosport system, which is where I worked with Dr. Davis for a number of years, and we got to know each other quite well. So in the last year, that's when we came up with this idea of trying to bring hope to diabetes and let people, give them a chance to get them back into remission just through changing what they eat and when they eat. So I'm looking forward to having a chat as the evening goes on.
Thanks, Donal. Tom, over to you.
Yes, hi, Dr. Dominic Davis. I'm one of the GPs at the Homewell practice. A lot of you might have seen me or spoken to me or just heard my dulcet tones on the answer phone when you call up the practice. I'm the diabetic lead at the practice, and as Donal said, we've worked together on quite a few projects in the past. And when this opportunity came along, I thought this was a perfect opportunity to bring this along to the Homewell practice and to HAVENT.
Thanks, Tom. Jane.
Okay, yep, so that leaves me. Hi, everybody. You'll probably recognize my voice. If you don't recognize my face, I have been speaking to lots of you recently and trying to encourage you and motivate you to get on board with this. I think it's a great project. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm the diabetes nurse practitioner. I've been at Homewell for about 18 months, but I've worked in diabetes for about 25 years, 26 years, something like that. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to really supporting this program going forward.
Thanks, Jane. So guys, what we're going to do is we're going to start off just with a little kind of overview about the intervention, and then I'm going to pass you on to Donal, Dom and Jane, who all have personal experience with this type of a protocol, which is essentially a refined food-free, lower carbohydrate, higher healthy fat sort of a dietary protocol. And this is something we're hugely excited about. Personally, I've had a lot of clinical experience dealing with deploying these sort of interventions on patients, and I'll go through the results shortly. But Donal, I might pass over to you just for a quick overview on what the intervention is going to look like, what patients can experience, and to start off, maybe your own personal experience too.
Yeah, so during as one of my senior leadership positions in the Vanguard years, I was noticed I was getting increasingly tired, lethargic in the evenings. I could not wait to go to bed. I was absolutely shattered and exhausted. And it was a bit ironic because I was involved in a project which was about preventing long-term conditions. And I went off and got my blood test done, and it showed that my HbA1c was 68, which meant that I had developed type 2 diabetes. And the very thing I was trying to prevent happening to my patients. So in some ways, I felt a bit of shame, a bit of guilt. How could I have let this happen to myself? And then I went on a journey of trying to fix it. So I went along and saw my GP and took the usual treatments of take some tablets, and I was told to eat less and move more. And we had set up a Weight Watchers program in our surgery. So I went along to that and got weighed with my patients every Thursday evening. And I managed to lose 5 kilograms in that program. And then I repeated my bloods. And interestingly, my HbA1c came back at 68. So exactly the same. And I was scratching my head thinking, how is this? Because we all know if we lose weight, our diabetes should improve. And then I noted that one of my patients had reversed his diabetes, so I had a chat to him about it. And essentially, he told me a very simple story about stop eating sugars, stop eating refined carbohydrates, eat whole foods. And then I started researching it, and there's loads of evidence and loads of science out there behind this, but it's not marketed well because there isn't a lot of money to be made from it in terms of medications, drugs, or big food. So I switched what I was eating, and essentially started eating a lot more healthy fats. I put cream in my coffee in the morning. I skipped breakfast. And much to my amazement, the biggest thing that happened, first of all, was the hunger that had dogged me for the last 15 years disappeared. And suddenly I was liberated from where's the next meal, where's the next snack. And then my HbA1c came back 6 months later at 45 and has maintained in the low 40s since then. So that has given me great hope, and I then wanted to share this with you and many others. I shared it with plenty of patients in Ferrum with great success. So I know it works, and it is relatively simple. Science behind it is wonderfully simple, which we'll hear a little bit from Andrew later on.
Brilliant, thanks, Donald. And Dom, I know you've some experience just recently with a kind of a lower carb diet. Do you mind sharing your journey so far?
Indeed. So, with Donald and Andrew sort of coming in and talking us through, what the program was about, we as a practice are very excited by it, but we actually thought that it would make sense for us as staff who work here to actually give this a go. And my personal point of view, unfortunately our job is quite sedentary. We do tend to sit, and there is often the opportunity to sit and eat biscuits and do all the things that we tell everyone else not to do. And again, being a diabetic lead, I continuously am talking to people about their weight and that side of things. And I realized that actually I was the heaviest I'd ever been last year. And doing my BMI, I fell into the classification of being obese. I'd been to there's been a few points that had struck me. I'd been, last year tried to do a zip wire with my boys, and I almost wasn't allowed to do it because my weight was too heavy. They did just allow me. I was just under the ability to do it. I was getting to the point where actually I realized that putting my shoes on and actually leaning over to do the laces, I was having to take a bit of a breath before I did so because my tummy was getting in the way and it was making me short of breath. And I've never been in that position before, but it was it started to strike home. I had to do something about it, and I had, same as everyone often thinks, I used to do lots of exercise. I just need to go back to doing the exercise. Everything will be fine. But actually, no, that's not really the case. So for the last sort of 6-7 weeks, I've been following this program, and I've lost 11 kilos just in that sort of 7 weeks, and I'm now officially classed as I'm overweight, but I'm no longer obese. So I've sort of gone past that, that threshold. As Donald says, the most amazing thing is I have lunch and an evening meal, and I haven't had breakfast for the whole 7 weeks. I have the fast bit in there, and I do not feel hungry. It's amazing. This morning I was working at the vaccination site for the COVID, and I was helping at times, making cups of tea for everybody. There was huge piles of biscuits there. Wasn't tempted. It's amazing how that change happens. So and I feel so much better. I'm sleeping better. I've got energy. I don't want to sleep after I've eaten a meal. I wake up in the morning and I feel great. It's really good.
Brilliant, thanks, Tom. Yeah, no, I can certainly attest to that. And from a patient's point of view, it's something we hear all the time. I think patients are normally expecting to be a little bit deprived, a little bit miserable, hungry a lot of the time, and it's really not the case. Done correctly, you get that suppression of appetite hormones, and there's little or no hunger. And Jane, I know you've personal experience with this as well, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked in diabetes for a really, really long time, decades and decades, and the old advice was very different. You could eat your carbohydrates. It was the plate model and things like that, and we've been working with that for years and years and years in diabetes. And then I started to see the emerging evidence for a low carb diet, and it is absolutely overwhelming. I mean, and you guys will see this as we go on with this program. The benefits are just phenomenal. And I always think, a bit like Don was sort of saying, you can't talk to people, patients, people, about diet and about what to do unless you try these things for yourself. I was a bit overweight. I had a bit of a problem, a health problem with my kidney, and it was very painful. And although they never told me that I needed to lose weight because I was overweight, I wasn't you know, in the obese category, but I was definitely overweight. And I went along to some low carb workshops, and I've been doing low carb now for a year. So I started last January, and during the year, I think probably in the first 3 or 4 months, I lost 10 kilos, and I've kept that 10 kilos off. And remarkably, absolutely remarkably, my kidney pain has gone. So I'm a huge advocate for it, and I really hope for all of you guys out there that you'll be like us. You know, in a few months' time, you'll really feel the benefit. You'll feel much better, and a lot of your health issues will dramatically improve.
Super,
So
thanks, Jane. Super, yeah, no, absolutely. Three great testimonials, and I personally have had experience with it as well. Nothing dramatic, but again, it was a couple of stone heavier. Didn't have a huge amount of weight to lose, up around 14 3/4 stone. But what really floored me was I come from a kind of a martial arts background, and eating every 2 hours to fuel yourself up for training, constantly hungry, constantly low energy. You know, blood sugar levels dropping coming up to dinner time and 9 o'clock at night, and banging the presses looking for something sweet or chocolatey. And from that to literally being able to go months on end without really indulging in biscuits or chocolate. And that's the key to know for patients, is that it's not really about willpower. It's more about tapping in to your physiology and targeting those hunger hormones. And when you do, after a couple of weeks, I mean, it's really plain sailing. So guys, I'm going to share with you my screen here, and I'm going to jump onto a platform demo to give you a feel for what you'll be experiencing. Can you see my screen there, guys? I must maximize it up, but perfect. Okay, great. Okay, so the program, guys, that you'll be going on to is in conjunction with Homewell. It's a lifestyle program. It's known as a digital therapeutic, technically, which is just a fancy way of saying an online program. So very, very easy to sign up for, and your coach will talk you through all of this in time. But it combines all the effective elements of a lifestyle program. So you have education that's specific to your chosen goals. So for example, if you select that you are, we know you're type 2, but we'll say, for example, you have high blood pressure, or you have high cholesterol, or you want to lose weight, the videos that you see, if you can understand my silly Irish accent, will be relevant to your chosen goals. So you'll see the weight loss videos if you chose weight loss, blood pressure if you chose blood pressure, and so on. You'll also be provided then on this online platform, again, very similar to a basic sort of a website in terms of navigating around it. You'll be provided with the resources, meal plans, shopping lists, food guides, absolutely everything that you need. The resources as well are from a kind of a ethnicity and cultural point of view. You can actually go in and select that you only want to see Indian meals or Asian meals, or, you know, vegan or vegetarian. So there's lots of flexibility when it comes to that. Everybody's catered for. There's a peer support forum, so you can chat with peers who are also on the program if you wish to. It's an evidence-based dietary protocol, so I'll come back to that in a second and I'll show you the results. And you also will have access to a one-to-one health coach. So you have your own health coach that you speak with on a weekly basis, and you'll have your doctor then who will review your medications. There's also a chatbot feature as well, so there's a facility to type in a question, get back an answer automatically if you don't necessarily feel you want to go for a consultation. So in terms of results, guys, and this is, I suppose, the cohort I'm talking about here, or the group of patients that we worked with here, was in these are real patients, not cherry picked, just whoever wanted to sign up, in a clinic in West Cork, which is just in the south of Ireland where we're from. And the percentage of those who normalized their HbA1c, meaning that they brought it down below 6.5%, was 48%. So 48% of participants, and to be honest, the vast majority of people who you know, even moderately comply will get huge reductions in their HbA1c. Now, the ultimate goal is to, you know, titrate down your medications, get you off your medications, and fully reverse your type 2 diabetes. But there is no fail on this program. You're going to reduce your blood pressure, you're going to lower your weight, you're going to get much better blood sugar control. It's it's an only win situation. So the ultimate goal being that you're one of that kind of 48%. And actually a more recent study, we had 71% of patients ended up in remission, or to use a different word, reversing their type 2 diabetes. So we typically see kind of 6 or 7 kgs in weight loss. So 15, 16 pounds in 6 or 8 weeks. And as Dom was saying, and even Jane was saying, you'll often see much more weight loss than that as well, particularly if there's more weight on. And if you're male, we have an unfair advantage there for some reason. So triglycerides will drop down as well. They're the kind of harmful cholesterol, and your blood pressure will drop down as well. So really, really remarkable results. And that study was published on data from 8 weeks. So this is not something that's going to take forever either. So again, like I was saying, we'll provide you with all the meal plans, shopping lists, food guides, everything that you need. You can go in and search your own recipes and save them to favorites. And this is just a kind of a rundown of the meals. And this is why patients will often say to us, I just can't believe that I could lose, 10, 15 kgs and get my blood sugar levels under control, come off medications. And I was eating the stuff that for the longest time I thought I should be avoiding. So eating things like, blueberries and cream, eggs, bacon, dark chocolate, all those kind of whole foods that are higher in fats. So we've had a misplaced and misguided, to use a kind word, emphasis on avoiding fats, and in particular saturated fats. But the clinical evidence is very, very clear now. It's overwhelming that in order to get really good diabetic and glycemic control and reverse type 2 diabetes, they're actually the foods we should be eating more of, and reversing the kind of processed, refined carbohydrates like breads, cereals, granola bars, and so on. So the point here with these, just to show you these pictures, is you're not going to be counting calories. You're not going to be deprived. We're not going to be looking at portion sizes and say, just chew some chewing gum so you don't think about food. It's going to be so much easier than you think. And actually, the vast majority of patients will come back and say, you know what, I really enjoyed it, and I'm sorry I didn't start sooner. So again, you'll have all the resources that you need, food guides, shopping lists, and these food guides, for example, for fruit here will show you on the left, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries, much lower in something called fructose, which is not something you want to consume a lot of if you're diabetic. So they're better, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries, and then maybe avoiding the ones like the tropical fruits, grapes, bananas, and so on. So I'm going to leave this up here, guys, while we continue on. If after the end of the webinar, I'm going to go back to the guys again, and we'll have a discussion with the panel. If you do want to register, I'm going to bring this up again towards the end. The email address here is down the bottom. So if you want to take a screenshot of that or even write it down, I'm going to leave it up for the rest of the webinar. You can send your email to sehcccg.homewell.practice-inquiries@nhs.net. And again, I'll bring this up on the screen at the end for another 5 or 10 minutes. So Donal, I might pass over to you for a second. So I suppose what I want the audience to hear, and what I know you guys wanted to hear as well, is what should a patient experience, and what do we expect patients to experience and to see with our patients on this sort of a program?
Yeah, just to touch on one thing you talked about, Andrew, was sure, the units of measurement. So over here, HbA1c is in a different unit than over in Ireland. So I think
sorry, you're 48. Yeah, apologies. Yeah.
Yeah. So normalizing will be under 48 is where we're hoping to get to.
Perfect.
And I think,
sorry, the 6.5 I refer to is the same as the 48.
Yeah. And I think what patients will probably come to expect on this is, in the first few days, is actually a sensation of feeling full. And as you said, there's no calorie counting or there's no measuring. And the rule that I've always followed is eat till you're full and then stop. And then don't eat until you're hungry again. And if you follow those rules, you can't really go wrong. But what can happen really quickly is in the first 1 to 2 weeks, you can actually lose a significant amount of weight because some of that will be fluid, and peculiarly you might pee a bit more, particularly at night. So don't be surprised if you have to get up a couple of times at night to pee. And the other thing is that your blood sugars can dramatically come down. So this is why it's critically important that you have a chat with Jane or Dr. Davis at the practice to talk about particularly 2 medications, insulin and gliclazide. Because what we don't want is your sugars crashing too low, and then you're getting the effect of hypoglycemia, which I know Jane will have talked to you about. But often in the first few weeks or a month, we can rapidly decrease your insulin and rapidly decrease your gliclazide, which then puts you in a safe place that you're not going to get a hypoglycemic attack. And then we can slowly trim away the other medications as well. The other thing that can happen sometimes with you losing a lot of fluid or urinating a lot is blood pressure control as well. So sometimes people say, oh, when I get out of bed in the morning, I feel a bit woozy, or getting up from the chair suddenly. And again, if you're on a lot of blood pressure medications, we might need to trim those down as well. So particularly in the first 4 weeks, keeping a close eye on the blood sugars is critical. If you have a blood pressure monitor at home, checking your blood pressure a couple of times a day would be great. If you don't have a blood pressure monitor at home, I think it really is worthwhile investing in one. They're really cheap in most chemists these days. And I think enjoy it. So I know I've come to really enjoy my food, whereas previously it was a thing I had to do to quench my hunger. I now really look forward to my dinners and fantastically enjoy them in the evening. So, and as Andrew touched on, looking forward to sleeping better, having a bit more energy, and mental clarity is the other thing. So that people talk about this brain fog lifting and the ability to think clearly, and mood. If particularly in these dark times in COVID, people can get a bit anxious, a bit down, a bit depressed, and this can help lift mood and give you a brighter outlook on life, and particularly by achieving something quite extraordinary, which is turning your diabetes around, getting off medications, is a phenomenal result. I think that's all I have to say about that. I don't know if I've missed anything. If anyone else wants to come in.
No, I think that makes sense. And just, I suppose, one thing to focus in on, Donald, is, and a lot of people may not be as familiar with it. Sometimes patients will say to us, how many years will it take to get me off medication, and how many months? It's much more like a matter of days. So the number one variable or factor when it comes to your blood sugar levels are what you eat. So when you change down the amount of processed carbohydrates and sugar in your diet, you will instantly, within a couple of hours, potentially days, maybe sooner, need to look at reducing down your medications. And Dom, I might pass over to you on that, just in terms of the need to reduce medications, and happening pretty soon.
Indeed. I mean, I think, as Donald rightly points out, there are particular medications that we would be very keen to look at, and we've got a regime as such as to what we would do when you first start the trial. It is important that you do this with our support. So what we wouldn't want you to do is literally just suddenly take all this on board and suddenly start doing it and continue all your diabetic medication without us being involved, because being very low in blood sugars, hopefully all you are aware, is very dangerous, and it is something that we would want to avoid. Both Jane and I are in the building here virtually, at least one of us is here virtually every day, and we're communicated. You can get a message to us, and we're going to try and make that as simple as possible for you, so that anybody that is doing this system, we can support you in adjusting medications. And as Donald was saying, also not just the diabetes, the sugar side, but also blood pressure as well. Ultimately, we might find that we will probably cut the medications that will be of concern quite dramatically when you first start this. It might mean that for a couple of days your sugars might be slightly high, but we're expecting it to pretty much get down to where good levels again very quickly. And we prefer to run you very slightly high for a couple of days than risk you going low. So when you come in, and this is partly what we talked through, what we would intend to do when we get you on board with this program is actually do some baseline readings and bloods, and you'll be seeing our health coaches, and they'll be going through exactly where you are now. And at that point, we will be making the decisions about your medications and what changes we need to make before you embark upon the journey.
Brilliant, thanks, Tom. Did you want to add to that, Jane?
Well, I think you've captured most of it, but I mean, I would say in one sense, in case anyone's thinking, gosh, that sounds really scary, we're going to potentially be at having hypos left, right and center. I don't, on the other side of that coin is the fact that actually your it's showing that things are going really well, and your requirement for medication is just dropping and dropping and dropping. And I think what's important is it's a collaborative project. It's not like you're just looking at an app on your phone and doing it on your own in isolation. You're going to be very supported both by us at Homewell, but you've got health coaches, so you can get in touch with us, and we put a lot of things in place so that you can easily get in touch with us. So communication streams have been set up and will be in place, so you'll always be able to get hold of us, and we can do the preemptive strike with the medication. So we're dropping it down really regularly, so you do not run into those hypoglycemic problems. Yeah.
And just to touch on
it's a great point. Sorry, Donald, go ahead.
I was just going to touch on the health coaches so that the people in Navan will be aware that for the first 4 weeks, once a week, the health coach will give you a ring just to check everything's okay, things are progressing as expected, you're able to use the platform, you can understand what the Cork guys are saying, and that nothing bad is happening. And if we hear anything, with the health coaches will be based with us in this room that you're looking at, and if we hear anything worrying, we'll ask you to get in touch with the practice, but we'll also get in touch with the practice as well as a fail-safe mechanism. And then after 4 weeks, we won't be tormenting you, so you will have access to the health coach if you have any queries or questions as often as you want, as frequently as you want. But a lot of people usually after 4 weeks have enough on board and they crack on with it themselves. But there is somebody there throughout the program to be able to answer any questions.
Brilliant, super, thanks Donald. Okay guys, we might go to a Q&A. I have a couple of questions in already. So for anyone on the call, there's a questions tab that you'll see. Oh, we've loads, okay. Super, okay, question in, how long does the program run for? Donald, I'll pass that over to you.
So we're planning, so you will have access to the software for 12 months. We probably will be in contact with us over 6 months, but we'll be monitoring you over the year. And so the plan is to get your baseline bloods done at the beginning, and then at about 3-4 months get a repeat blood, which we hope will see the HbA1c dropping quite dramatically then, and a further one done 3-4 months later, and again at the end.
Perfect. Question in here around, I see cream and cheese in the pictures. Will they not be bad for my heart? And again, Donald, I'll pass that over to you. I know we've experienced this as coaches anyway. I've experienced that a ton of times, but I'll pass it over to you again, Donald.
This is a hard one to take on board because, since particularly since the early 70s, it's been rammed into us that cream and all these fats are really bad for us. But the evidence is actually saying otherwise. And recently, the Journal of American Cardiologists specifically came out and said saturated fats are not the bad guy. Don't worry about them. And the big bad guy is the one that we haven't talked about much about in the last 50 years, which is the white powdered stuff that we keep taking, which isn't the one that you buy off the guy in the corner of the street, but it's our sugar. And that's the one that's causing all the damage, mostly. But the fats, so I would say healthy fats. So things that I would call healthy fats are things like olive oil, butter, cream, oils squeezed from fruits, such as olive oil or avocado. Stay away from the vegetable oils, which essentially are chemicals that actually are inflammatory and could be dangerous. And then eating all foods, which you'll learn from the program, which is a concept called whole foods. So eating foods that look like they originally were, but you can cook them in butter, cream and cheese. And it's frankly fantastic.
I'll just come in there quickly, and it just, I've been surprised. I've been eating a lot more of the things that I enjoy in this. For example, tonight I'm looking forward to. I've got sausages and cauliflower cheese, as a for my meal when I'm getting home, hopefully. If my sons haven't eaten it all by the time I get there. It's eggs and bacon, scrambled eggs and bacon for sort of a nice brunch. It's lovely. It's being able to relax. And the bit that I think is the real key bit I learned from this is that it's so drummed into you about fat is the evil that actually it's taken a bit of a leap of a real challenge to actually start introducing the fats and not having the carbs there. And actually that's the bit that makes the difference, and it really seems to make the difference for me. I'm not hungry if I have the good fats with my meal. As I say, I've not had breakfast. I've always been somebody who's craved breakfast in the morning. Wake up hungry. I've not had breakfast for 7 weeks, and I literally start getting a bit hungry by about midday, and that's when I have my lunch. It's great.
Can I say something about the science behind this, Andrew? So,
yeah, by all means.
In very simple terms, what we're trying to do is to reduce the insulin levels in your own body. And if you get your own insulin levels down, weight falls away, and your metabolic health improves, and you get your diabetes reversing. And fats and proteins have negligible effect on it. In the program, you learn all about this from Andrew. But the only foods that have a dramatic effect on it are quickly absorbed carbohydrates. So the white powder sugar and the highly processed foods. So anything that's ground down to a powder gets rapidly absorbed. And then you get a huge spike in insulin in your body, and that actually drives weight gain and drives your diabetes to go out of control and drives more medications.
Correct. Yeah, and I suppose just further to your point, the real kind of nuts and bolts behind getting blood sugar levels down is more to do with what you omit or take out of your diet as opposed to what you eat. So yes, you're eating the healthy fats, the eggs, the avocado, the olives, the nuts, the meats, the cheese, that sort of stuff. It's the removal of or reduction of the breads, cereals, granola bars, all that sort of stuff. And it's not fringe anymore. So the American Diabetes Association, ADA, and the American Heart Association have both made consensus statements in recent years saying that actually a lower carbohydrate diet is the optimal treatment for patients with diabetes. So it's very much starting to become mainstream. And that brings me to the next question, actually, as come in, has said, is this the keto diet? So it's not the keto diet. It would have similarities. So we describe this as a whole food eating protocol. And it's funny when you describe things as low carb and people say, oh, I don't know, it's low carb. If you were to eat only whole foods, you would be by default in a low carbohydrate diet. So it's not that you're excluding any one nutrient for the sake of excluding it. It's if you were to eat what nature provides, so fish, meat, eggs, low sugar fruits and vegetables, you would be by definition in a low carb bordering on ketogenic diet. So there's a lot of merit behind keto diets, but this is a lower carbohydrate, higher healthy fat, whole food diet. I think that's fair to say, Don.
Yeah, and the word ketosis and diabetes together can get quite scary as well. But in terms of this nutritional approach, when you start burning your own fat and your belly starts shrinking, sometimes you produce ketones, and that's all the word keto means.
Yeah, it can be conflated with ketoacidosis, which is an entirely different state, predominantly with type 1 diabetics. This is very different, even though it sounds the same because the word keto is in it. This is nutritional ketosis, which is the default energy state that we all slip into if we don't eat a lot of processed food. Question in, is there a cost to it?
So no. So the cost to the patient really is buying different foods. And like any diet, you can spend either lots of money or little amounts of money on it. So if you're going to go out and buy very nice fillet steaks, then you're going to increase your cost. If you buy, mincemeat, you'll reduce your cost. I make my own seed crackers, and I might have a tin of sardines with it. So my lunch might cost me £1, which I think is reasonable value. If you want to go down the smoked salmon and avocado line, you by all means you can. But so this is choice. We all make choices in our life, but there's no cost to you from the practice. There's no cost to you. You won't be billed or charged anything like this. I hope that is clear.
Yeah, super. And I think the question was possibly more in relation to the program. So no, there's no expense to the program. You're not charged for the program itself at all. So question in here around not eating breakfast, yet we're told not to miss breakfast being the most important meal of the day. I'm happy to take that one because I've probably been asked it 500 times in seminars over the last few years. So you're correct in your observation that is the dogma. However, first of all, the phrase breakfast is the most important meal of the day, there's no science behind it, and it was actually a advertising slogan from Frank R.J. Kellogg's going back to 1914, who published it in Good Health magazine, in the first edition of that magazine, to say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and it just kind of stuck. So it's actually a cereal company slogan. Breakfast comes originally from to break one's fast. You break your fast when you're hungry and you have an energy requirement to do so. So the idea that we should just automatically eat breakfast irrespective of whether we're hungry or not and ignore our physiology is kind of based on a shoddy kind of a science. I think that's fair enough to say.
Yeah, but if people choose to eat breakfast, that's okay as well.
Of course.
Yeah, but again, it comes back to the rule that I tend to follow, which is eat when you're hungry. So if when you get up in the morning you happen not to be hungry, you don't have to eat.
Absolutely. We've a very sorry, Tom, I was just going to say we have a very engaging audience. Tons of questions coming in, so I'll throw the next one out. The next question is, can it affect IBS problems? And I think the answer for that is for sure. I know I've personal experience with patients saying that their IBS symptoms subside, get better, and sometimes completely go away when you remove the inflammatory foods in your diet, which are, for the most part, almost always refined carbohydrates and industrial seed oil based. So
yeah,
you'll certainly see.
I'll go the next step on that and say I do have I used to have issues, and actually since doing this I haven't. It's made quite a big difference to me.
So Andrew, we'd have to say for the first 1 to 2 weeks with some people where they urinate a lot and might get a bit dehydrated, in the first 1 to 2 weeks, some people can get a bit constipated. And if you are getting constipated, it's a sign that you need to drink more.
Yeah, for sure. So really positive comment in here from someone who's obviously been on this before. As someone who has lost the weight using this kind of regime, there is nothing not to like. My health, mentally and physically, is so much better and I love it. Real food is so tasty and fulfilling. Go for it. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose other than weight. Super. Nice testimonial. We might end on that one unless we have any other. No, we don't. Questions coming in. So I'm just going to share my screen here, guys. Any of the panel have anything else you want to add just before I pop up the details for registration?
Just for me, this is probably one of the most exciting projects I've been involved with over the last 25 years, and I can't tell you how excited I am to work with you over the coming year.
Yeah, me too. Same feeling really. I know a lot of you might be thinking, well, I'll go on there and sign up, and what the next steps is. And I think as the next step will be, am I right in saying this, Andrew and Donald, that people will then be given an appointment to come in for their baseline? Is that, and we anticipate that would be the last week in January for those appointments.
Yeah, so what we hope is that you'd come in for a blood test for baseline bloods. You then would meet a health coach or myself or a lady called Lynn, who will take your weight, waist circumference, do your blood pressure, and then just check that you're able to log on to the platform. So once we have to sign off a thing called data sharing agreements. So once we have those things signed off, we can then get a link sent to you from Andrew to the Redicare site that you can then sign on. So when you come in for the blood test, we'll just check you are able to get on it. You're able to get past the bit that says username and password, which is the one that normally tricks me up. And then you can save it on whatever device you have, so you have easy access to it going forward. But again, if there's any issues, we will have the health coaches who will be able to help you log back in and sort these things out.
Brilliant. Yeah, and just to I was going to say it's a second, just to third and fourth that on behalf of all of us, thanks so much for joining. We're really excited about this project. Again, I've personal experience having published around this sort of stuff before with the group. I see no reason why we can't get similar results, and we're really excited to do that in conjunction with the home well practice. So again, guys, if you want to express your interest, all you need to do is send an email to sehccj.homewell.practice-inquiries@nhs.net, and I'm going to leave that up on the screen if anyone wants to take a screenshot of that. Guys, thanks so much for your time, Jane, Dom, and Donald. I really appreciate your input, and for everyone joining. We'll be back again tomorrow night, just in case. Sorry, Donald, go ahead.
I just wanted to add one thing about, so we're going to get half the people probably into remission with this approach. But what we want to be clear about is the other half, you won't have failed. You will be in a better health state. So your sugars will have improved. You might still need medications, but you'll probably need a bit less. You'll probably weigh a little bit less. But we'll only get people off medications whose HbA1cs are getting back into the normal range. And if you still need a bit of help, it just means you need a bit of help. So I just want to make sure that out of this, there are no failures.
Yeah, great point. We actually had a patient, obviously I won't say names, but we had a patient that went from, I think, something like 70 to a HbA1c of 49, and I'm just going, so close. But like you said, there is no failure. Either way, you are going to have lower blood sugar levels. You are going to lower your blood sugar, your blood sugars, your blood pressure, and lose weight. So it's a win-win.
And you're going to feel better, aren't you? You're going to feel much better.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? It's funny, Jane. The stuff that really excites me is obviously getting patients losing weight and coming off medications. But when you hear things like my mental health is amazing, I've got more energy running around playing with the kids, it's just great. It just goes across all different aspects of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So guys, thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for logging on. We had a full house tonight, which is super. Jane, Dom, and Donald, thanks so much for your time, and we'll chat again tomorrow night. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.